Hello and welcome to the Intentional Soul, the home for the highly functioning spiritual types out in the world. It is here that we look at the world and ourselves through the lens of higher consciousness, connecting deeply to who and what we really are. Now, my name is Tom Ross, spiritual teacher, healer, spiritual nonconformist, and I am your host for these conversations. On the Intentional Soul, we hear not only from me, but from people who are living intentionally, openly, and authentically in their world. We'll hear their stories of personal transformation while sharing best practices and tactics to help you get the most out of this game called life. Now, nothing is off limits as we seek to expand ourselves and our awareness and live, ultimately, our most authentic lives. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Intentional Soul with my friend Brian here actually today. So we're rolling in person. This is the first time we're going to run this format, so we'll see how it goes. But I go perfect. Dude, I appreciate the fact that I was like, it's on Zoom on the way out, and you were driving, and I was like, that doesn't feel like how he would be normally excited. I'm going to figure this shit out.
Yeah, I love that you did. I mean, look, man, especially because of who you are and why I think you want me here. For your audience, it would feel a little odd to me to not be connected as closely as we possibly could be.
Well, I appreciate it. So a little bit about Brian. He is the founder and visionary of a real estate brokerage called North&Co in the greater Phoenix area. He's a seeker, he's a father, he's a hell of a partner, he's a strategist, he's an intuit, he's a pattern seer in the world. He's actually a coach, developed his own methodology with taking pain and pain to joy, right?
That's right.
And more than that, he's a friend and a brother to me. And so I couldn't be more excited to have him here today. And so why don't you just tell us about yourself, man? You can just the short version, bring us up to date, what brings you here?
The short version is that today I am the happiest I've ever been in my life. And that's not by way of being acutely aware of why I wasn't happy along the way and exploring that at scale. Okay. And today, if you were to say, why do you think that you're the happiest you've ever been? It's simplified, really, in that I am a regular practitioner of body movement. I'm a regular practitioner of at least awareness around my diet and nutrition. I am conscious about my sleep habits and efforts and the power of connection in relationship. And if I'm acutely aware of those things on a regular basis, and I'm practicing them all together as much as possible, it's led me to a place where I can smile. And what I reference it as, to give the viewer a tangible metaphor, is I call it consistently tuning the knobs on the DJ board. Okay. That's what I call it. It's like if I was the DJ of my own life, and electronic music is so popular today. Like you scroll through Instagram or social media and you see these like really cool shows where I do wish I was 24 again sometimes. You know what I mean?
Why hold this up?
Yeah, I love it. Well, by the way, that might be part of it. I'm happy I'm not. But there's, But you see these DJs with the microphone. They're dressed so colorfully and so fun, and they got their hands up in the air, and the smoke is shooting, and the confetti's flying. And right before the beat drops, you kind of see them they boom, hit the button, and the whole thing just kind of in rhythm.
Right.
And it's this thing that I do to think about it so that I can have it be fun, because, having to be acutely aware of why you're not winning in certain areas of your life isn't the most fun way to think about how to get there. But right now, the song at the club is pumping. Let's just put it that way.
That's freaking awesome. All right. So you are acutely aware, you develop these awarenesses, you develop these practices that put you in a position where you're happy. What was the point at which you decided to make that change, or what was the catalyst to go and find these particular awarenesses?
Yeah, I mean, the catalyst, it's funny. It goes back to when I was 19 years old. The catalyst for me, it seems to always be relationship or loss thereof. If I look back to the 2 or 3 times that I did the deepest dive on self, it was after I lost somebody really important to me.
Okay.
And at 19 years old was the loss of my first love. It was the first time that I ever truly felt what love felt like. It was my high school sweetheart, and she left me because I was a dipshit. And by the way, I was 19. I was pretty damn equipped, to be honest with you, but I was 19, and I sought therapy for the first time on my own. With no economic help or guidance from family or anybody. It was like I had a little bit of money in my pocket for my job that I'd saved up, and I wanted to get better, so I sought therapy. And I went to a therapist for the first time, and it was the first time I had somebody that I trusted really break me down and deliver or highlight some awarenesses that could make me better. And that really never stopped. That probably heightened my awareness to coaching and I don't know, for lack of a better description, self-help. And so I became a student of getting better. I mean, there's so many theories and methodologies out there about 1% better every day and all those kinds of things that now are marketing messages. But for me, I really chose to live that life. And then in this most current iteration, it was the loss of my marriage. Yeah. And again, there's an opportunity in those scenarios. While in marriage, I think I could say, especially for somebody who was really up to the game of marriage, that I don't take 100% responsibility for the breakdown of the marriage. I can tell you with the information that I have now that I think the marriage could have survived. And so, I can honestly say that today I take 55% responsibility. Like if I ever got a chance to look my ex-wife in the face and go like, I'm sorry, I was the majority responsible for that. And as somebody who doesn't like to lose, you have a choice. You can point the finger at somebody or you can look in the mirror. And the mirror is a really intense experience, especially when the loss is as profound as this particular loss was. And that began a journey.
Yeah, it's that breakdown leading to breakthrough, yeah. Right? The happiest you've ever been coming out of the darkest spot. And it is a choice. It's bizarre that simultaneously, and this occurs not just like in the context of I've lost a marriage or something where you can look at it and be like, okay, well, that was 50-50, or maybe I was 80, maybe it was 80 me, 20 them. But this occurs like in the realm of of serious, let's say like abuse. The only empowering context is to give yourself power over the experience. You know what I mean? And so it's like choices sometimes almost, it's like, it's such a hard thing for me to describe sometimes, but have you ever felt like I did exactly the best I could in that situation, given who I was? Like, how could I have possibly made another choice? And it's not until I've had that experience that I'm over here looking in the rearview mirror that I can then see what else was like what else was available. So it's almost like I'm wrestling with this idea and it's not fully baked yet, but almost like that choice in a way is a result of the experience that I had based on me making the best decision I could.
Yes. When you were asking the question, my answer was every time, meaning like I did the best I could with the information I had at the time, like always. And it is hindsight's 2020. Now that I'm here and I have new awarenesses, I'm like, man, like could have done that different, but could I have?
Right.
You know what I mean? And on the other hand, I can look back at really clear times in my life where I was like, I know I'm making a bad decision right now. Right. and I still made a bad decision. You know what I mean? So on one hand, where I'm like, yeah, I made every decision, the best that I could with the information I had. And like, bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, I knew I was making a bad decision a few times in my life, and I still made, like, I thought about it and pondered it, and like, it's like, don't jump. And then I still jumped, you know what I mean? So yes, I think when we're talking about decisions that are made that we don't understand the gravity of, or the wake that's going to be left at some distant point in the future. Yeah. And those are happening every day.
Yeah.
Right. Give you an example of something that comes up for me is like, I shared with a friend of mine recently that he taught me a lesson in a dream.
Okay.
And he was like, this is intense.
Yeah.
This is what I do, And he had revealed to me something extraordinarily private to him, like the most private. Okay. And I had a dream that I told somebody his secret, but it was in my way. I believed I was telling them because it was good for him.
Right.
So I made a choice to reveal his ultimate secret, one of his ultimate secrets, because I made a linear decision that it was good for him.
Yeah.
And he found out, and he came to me in the dream to tell me how devastatingly hurt he was. Right. And then I got to sit in the feeling, in the reveal of that no matter what I think about the reveal of that secret, the fact that it was a secret means it needs to remain a secret. And so here in the context of a dream, but could obviously play out in real life, is this thing that, are we always conscious that we're making the best decision, or that the decision we're making in that moment? If I did that in real life, in other words, if I did that in real life, I would have believed it was for the greater good.
Right.
Right. And I would have been doing what I could with the tools that I had in the moment, except it could have had a massive negative ripple effect in somebody that I deeply care about's life. Thank God I got to play it out in a dream.
Right.
Right. So
that makes sense. What are you seeing? So you coach, and you've coached agents for more than a decade now. Is that like how long have you been in that mentoring kind of like business development capacity in the realm of agents, and then now broader spectrum? What are you seeing people at this point like struggle with the most?
There's really two things. One is what I would just generally refer to as despair.
Okay.
Which I think is translated more often than not in victimhood.
Okay.
Right. So it's that like the feeling of point of no return. Like I'm in such lack of understanding that I just don't even know where to turn, which then lands itself at everything external is responsible for my outcome. Right. That's victimhood. The other one is just succumbing to what they believe is reality. Losing faith in that there's something better than their current circumstance, because we all tend to operate off of historical data, right? That happened to me once, and so it means it's going to happen to me again. And because we believe it's going to happen again, we do. So we perpetuate the outcome, or we even opt ourselves into it unknowingly. Without going too much deeper, it's that thing of just like ultimately, it's this feeling of like I just don't believe it can get any better. The other thing that's coming up a lot for me right now is specifically in the space of masculinity or men, is how lonely men are. I'm paraphrasing here, and my words aren't thoughtful or perfect. They're thoughtful, but they're probably not going to be perfectly synchronized because we're on the fly here. But I'm coming to this understanding that like in kind of first world, we'll call it America, only because that's my reference point, right? I've not operated outside of it. That there's this thing that, men are supposed to be strong, but the generalization of strong also means we don't emote. Right. We don't speak vulnerably. In effect, it's pull up your bootstraps. Right. I had a buddy say to me, if you're going to hang out with me, we're going to go deep. Right. And I got him to open up, or I'm going to say, I authorized him to open up, and therefore he chose to. And then he said to me, Brian, it's starting to get uncomfortable. My stepfather used to say to me, you can only lay in your dirty diaper for so long. Right. And that to me was like, it hurt my heart for him so bad, because it was this thing for me where it was like the same old adage of like, shut up, climb out of your dirty diaper, clean yourself off, and get back to whatever else you were doing or supposed to be doing relative to what societal norms are.
Right.
And then if you're in partnership, right, our significant other, specifically, we'll say the feminine in a traditional polarity sense, is going to say, innately, I have an expectation that you're strong, right? That you don't complain, that you listen when I need you to listen, when I choose to want to emote. But that society tells me that I might have similar or same feelings, but that I'm not supposed to do that, right? And this dynamic that continues to play itself out in the world, whether it's corporate architecture or familial household architecture, is getting to a point that is too much for men. And I'm finding that I have afforded myself a conduit for men to speak up. And they're coming to me privately in however they're equipped to do it, to say, I just want someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And it's eye-opening. Yesterday, I think it was Tim Ferriss posted it. And it was a conversation between he and Brene Brown. And Brene Brown, this segment that was posted.
The Sage of Vulnerability.
You got it. Yep. This segment that was posted by, I believe, Tim Ferriss, that's gone viral in my sphere of influence, was Brene Brown saying that one of the biggest misnomers in marriage is that it's 50-50. She's like, it's not 50-50. She goes, it can be 80-20 the other way. She said, what my husband and I do when we come home from work every day is we walk through the door and we check in, how are you doing? How much do you have to give tonight? And Brene will say, I have 20%. And that's 20% in conversation, vulnerability, support, cooking, cleaning, whatever it might be. Now, he has an option to say, it's okay, I'm 80%. I've got you, right? At which point he picks up the slack for where she's at.
Yeah.
Or they walk in the door and she looks to him and says, how are you doing? And he says, I'm 20%. And she says, me too. And then she goes on to say, and then we know we have to rely on an external force to carry the balance of the 60%, right?
Takeout.
That's right. Guess what? I had 2 men send that to me within 30 minutes of me seeing it for the first time on Instagram yesterday, with no context. No, they didn't say, hey, dude, did you see this? They didn't say, man, do you have 15 minutes to chat about this? What do you think it said to me? And I know the guys, so I had a unique offering or authorization to be able to read into what they were saying, which was, it was like, did you hear what she said? A woman said it's okay for me to not be 100% all the time.
Right.
That's what they were telling me. And they wanted to talk about it. Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, like there's a need here. Those are the two things that are coming up for me the most right now.
So that's amazing. And yeah, it feels spot on. And just from my own experience, like, I did a thing where I left a well-oiled machine that I had built that was earning me income. I took a sabbatical year in 2022. I came back and I detonated everything that was, and I started over from zero. Now I come into that house every day, and I'm exactly in that position where, it's like putting on the good face, just no matter what's happening, no matter what level of fear I have, no matter what level of trepidation I happen to be feeling, putting on a good face, because I'm essentially internally as a male, be like, I'm committed to providing, I'm going to provide. The last thing I want to do is show my mate, my partner, who supported me in this, that I'm scared in any way, because what the fuck is she supposed to do with that, right? But like, that's completely in my head. I haven't actually tested that, and actually had that specific conversation. So I say all that to say this is what percentage of the people that you're seeing, like, do they have a partner that is likely as supportive as I imagine Kelly actually is, as soon as I just actually open my mouth? Like, how much of it's in their head?
Well, the ones that are talking to me are significantly in the minority that have a spouse that are supportive.
Got it.
Yeah. Significantly in the minority.
Yeah.
And it's why and here's the thing, life's going on, and that's better than it not going on. Mm-hmm. So guess what I'm going to do? Stay quiet. Right. Because I know, based on history at least, that my partner doesn't support if I come to the party and say, I'm scared, is like, just for the record, in these relationships that I'm having, saying to your partner, I'm scared as a man, is like, that's the end of the road.
Dude, it's primal.
Yeah.
It is a primal urge to not do it.
It's like, just to get to where it's like, hey, I want to talk about the fact that things aren't going the way that I thought they were going to go. That would be like a step or 9 before I'm scared. You know what I mean? That's not happening either.
Right.
And what I am hearing, unfortunately, in the, let's call it 4 to 6 deep conversations that I'm having about this, is that not only is the reverb some form of resistance, it's actually showing up in what I would call, I would almost go as far to call it defamation. Yeah.
Tell me what I restate that so I understand it. Defamation. Who's defamating who?
I'm going to say that
defamating, defaming.
It would be, for example, a male client of mine seeking new wisdom in the space of let's call it energy and spirituality.
Okay.
Okay. Delivering that to his significant other as having a profound, an early profound shift in their life.
Okay.
At which the significant other says, "Oh, so you're woke now."
Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so you've been found. So everything's different now.
So someone's engaging in a transformational experience, and then they attempt to share, and then the blowback is some kind of resistance to what they're.
So not only is it like, "Hey, I'm scared," right, which isn't happening,
but the avenue I'm moving towards to feel whole is now getting thrown out as well.
Which is, by the way, a reinforcement of what masculinity has experienced in traditional norm since day one. Right. So it's just a reinforcement to keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Quit being a pussy, get out of your diaper and move on.
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. By the way, what an incredible hack Brene Brown has with respect to that. Like, where are you? 80-20. Like that is, I'm gonna employ that like tonight.
How simplistic.
It's outstanding.
And it's honest.
Yeah.
What if you say you're 100 when you walk through the door and your partner just gets to go, "Can I go to bed?" And you go, "No problem."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Despair. How do you work with people and move them through that space of, I feel hopeless. I don't see the out. Everything is conspiring against me. Like, because when you talk about despair and hopelessness, that there's I'm victimized, and then there's I'm victimized, and there's nothing else. So it's sometimes it's more than just a matter of simple recontextualization. Yep. What do you do?
So first, I'm gonna go down a tributary. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole for just a second. You know, my divorce process started about 5 years ago, and you know, there's this part of like I'm gonna call it. I'm making this up. It's like devastated excitement, right? It was like, I'm devastated, but the decision's been made, so like there's something new coming, right? And it's like the pre-devastation phase, right? You know what I mean? And again, none of these are medical terms, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so going in that process, what I ended up doing was tricking myself with this idea that when the divorce was final, things were going to get better. Okay. There's a date. It's like a date and time, and everything in between now and that date and time is really different. It's like sorting out friends, sorting out kids, sorting out family, sorting out money. So it's all this very like mechanical minutia. Besides, there's a bunch of energy and loss of family and loss of friends, and it's just, you're just in the mud. And there's this ideal, at least for me, there was this ideal that when I reach that date, it's going to be better.
Yep.
And it wasn't until we reached that date that I started my process. And that was really, really terrifying because I was emotionally prepared to get better.
Yeah.
And the choice was made without me for it to get worse, right? It just, I didn't understand the process that was coming.
You had like a hallucination that's stamped and sealed, and Brian goes skipping into his new life. That's right. You know, with a little bit of sadness, but skipping into my
And in fact, it was all going to be done.
Right.
I'd know what my future was, and then I could go build it. And then I started the mourning process. I started the self-realization process, self-awareness process, and then self-actualization. But before I got there, it was 1 full year of celebrating equal to self-medicating. I was drinking, I was partying, I was out late, feeding myself with expensive food, loud, nights out. It was just whatever I could do to kind of drown out the noise. And it was this false sense that like I was free and something had made it, right? And about 10 months post the final divorce, we ended up in San Diego for the summer, and I went out for a surf, and I went to paddle. I've been doing it my whole life. The waves were what we would call chest high. In fact, it was a beautiful summer day, nothing out of the ordinary. And I got sent to the beach. The waves decided to not let me make it out there to surf that day. In other words, I was emotionally and physically out of shape.
I want to apologize real quick for not putting surfer on my bio.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, no problem. And by the way, I don't think at this point we could really do it, but I'm going to pretend. All right. Yeah. And I got to the beach and I was out of breath and I was exhausted and I didn't catch a wave and it was beautiful. And I sat down in the sand with my board in my lap and I cried. Mm-hmm. And I had this moment. The simplest way to describe that moment was, so this is where age gets you. Because at the time I was 44, I was 43 actually, just before my 44th birthday. So I was 43 and I felt like really physically out of shape. Like I looked down at my body and I wasn't happy with my body, not because I didn't look cool, but because I wasn't in physical condition to do the things I love to do. Yeah. And I went, man, and emotionally, I don't know if I have the equipment to like put on running shoes and go get myself in shape. I just don't know if I believe I can do it. And at that point, I then asked myself a question. Is this where you do it? Is this where you succumb and you give up? Or is this where you take it a day at a time? And I think that's what they say you do. And I started taking it a day at a time. And the next day I decided, okay, I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to go on a run. I'm going to be conscious of what I eat, which is really simply just eat more fruits and vegetables. That was it. That was all that it was. It was like more fruits and vegetables and no fried food. Okay. And I'm going to run 1 mile. So I woke up in the morning. I ran 1 mile, which was brutal. I came home, ate more fruits and vegetables that day, and went to the beach. And my goal was to at least make it out there. And I made it out. So the thing about this kind of digression or tributary, the first thing I want to say is it's a game of inches, right? So it's small ball, right? I didn't paddle out thinking I was going to catch 10 waves like I did the year before. All I wanted to do was be better than yesterday, right? Run 1 mile, eat some fruits and vegetables, and make it out into the lineup. I actually did catch a wave, which was a super victory, right? Next day, 1 mile, more fruits and vegetables, and so on. Naturally, I'm getting a point where I'm getting a little bit stronger. So what do? I push to 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles. And then I'm sitting out in the lineup a little longer, catching a little more. By the way, when you sit out in the ocean a little longer, you get a tan. You look in the mirror and you're like, oh my gosh, I look a little bit different. Now, it was masking my body with a tan, which helps a lot, you know? And I started eating better and I started sleeping better. And then I started wanting to eat even better. And so, which meant drinking less, not quitting drinking, right? What's really important for everyone to hear is like, I didn't wake up one day and go stone cold sober and, start going to get a gym membership and a personal trainer and only eat kale salads every day. No. I was still eating, burgers and I was still eating and I was still drinking beer after a surf and like stuff like that. But it was just less of this, more of this. It's just a game of inches. It was, probably around the end of June that I went to a yoga retreat and I was introduced to breath work. Mm-hmm. Different than meditation. There was yoga, there was meditation, and then there was breath work. And breath work really was just oxygenation. Yep. I'll keep it super simple. And I felt very awake after that. Like I remember walking out of there and going like, flowers are pretty and the grass is greener and the water is bluer and like, wow, like that was different. So now fast forward through this thing, it got me to a place where I was sitting quietly in a breath session in September. So this was in June of last year. And now I'm in September, 3 or 4 months down the road, running 1 mile a day, eating more fruits and vegetables, drinking less. And I'm sitting there and I opened my eyes for about a 15-minute breathwork session. And I had this realization that suffering was as valuable as joy. That was it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for that day that I couldn't surf because it awakened me to so many things that I've now learned in the last 4 months. And what it made me do, as you can imagine, is it made me want to go a little bit further in my runs. And by this time, what happened is that I wasn't drinking. So last year I didn't drink for about 9 months. I think you know that. As of this morning, I ran 4 miles on a trail run this morning, and it's warm outside right now. So I'm between 4 and 6 miles based on the amount of time that I want to put into it. And about a 45-minute breathwork session with my girlfriend this morning, where we had synchronized breath. If you ever want to get deeply connected to your partner, lay side by side on your backs with guided breathwork and synchronize your breath together. I don't want this to sound like TMI, but there's almost a sexual arousal that happens when you're that connected and close with somebody. And by the way, it didn't happen and there wasn't. Right. It just was that deep of it's intimacy. Yeah. Absolutely. And so I could get long in this situation, but what is it that I do? I've really taken that method. Right. Where I feel I've been to so many therapies and therapy sessions and therapists, I'm pretty discerning with my therapist. If I go and in one session I don't feel aligned, it's over. Yeah. And so I've been to,
which by the way is
probably sage advice for 90% of people. If don't burn time if it doesn't feel like the person is going to be able to help.
No, I mean, look, at the end of the day, they make money billing, right? If they can schedule another appointment with you, they book another hour session and they get to make some money. And for me, I don't owe them anything, right? They're there providing a service for me. And if it doesn't align with me, then I leave. It's not personal, right? And what I learned the most out of the last 14 months was that in my experience, suffering begets joy. Right? It is the precursor to joy. If I go back 5 years and look at this journey of post-divorce until now, and I think about how dark, scary, I'm not sure I want to do this life anymore, dark, that it got. I can tell you that I am the happiest today I've ever been because of that suffering. So my path with people is to take them to a place of giving them awareness to the things that are helping them suffer, so that they can clean that up and find joy on the other side.
Awesome. And then deploying like that game of inches, how do you find your wins what are the small wins along the way? One
of the simple things, I'll give you two little examples of one thing of things we do is video recording a conversation of you with yourself in the mirror and then watching it back. Okay. Right. More often than not, what happens is people find out that they're not telling themselves the truth, because when you have to watch yourself lie to yourself, it's a fresh beginning. Yeah. Right. And from there, you get to really architect out how to have a truthful conversation with yourself, which most people aren't. What a beautiful way to start. Right. We're mostly responsible for our own outcomes in virtually every case. The second, another thing that we do is we do an asset liability worksheet on all of our friends.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So,
am I in the asset or liability? No.
If there's more liabilities than assets, then you have a choice to make. And usually that begins with a tough conversation. And if you're willing to make space in your life, then new things will show up. That's what I know for sure. And so those are two things that we do out of many in working through how to confront yourself. It's called Confront You is the program.
It's awesome. Yeah. So there's a ton of different spots I want to go here. However, we're going to run short on time.
Let's go power session. You just ask questions. I'll keep it short and we'll just power through some stuff.
All right. Most courageous thing that you ever had to do. We're giving an example of something you had to employ courage and had to draw that out of yourself.
Telling my oldest son that I cheated on his mom.
How did you do that?
Well, I got a little bit of a lead in, which was that she had revealed to him that, in her opinion, I was untrustworthy. Yeah, and he confronted me with that.
Got it.
And I said, well, you've been told, but you haven't been told. So now I get to tell you the truth. And what I learned on the heels of my divorce and in my confrontation with myself is that brutal honesty is the only path. Yeah. The truth shall set you free is one of my favorite things as long as I live. And so my thing is, when you tell people the truth, then you get to deal with factually based outcomes. So by sitting my son down and telling them the truth, I'm sure that your listeners can obviously empathize with how scary that might be, because there could be potential loss. I could lose the relationship, at least the current version of the relationship with my eldest son, right? Except for I also could have one of the most beautiful scenarios in our relationship whereby we join too. But if I project into that relationship a preconceived outcome that isn't true, and then I sabotage our ability to get better no matter what. Yeah. And so for me, it was an opportunity to sit down and tell him the truth and nothing but the truth. And with good fortune and God's will, we're closer than ever now.
Flexibility, a time that you've had to be extraordinarily flexible in your life or your business or whatever.
Every day. I'm a drive forward person. Mm-hmm. I feel that with practice and a bit of innate ability, I have the ability to be able to process. If there were 100 things that were going to potentially happen based on a decision I were going to make, I feel like I could process about 90 of them in 25 seconds or less, right? And so I move forward rather quickly. Okay. And in that process, what happens is I oftentimes get responses from people that are in the wake of those decisions that have not processed a lot of the predetermined outcomes that could happen. And so what I have to do is I have to be patient in my explaining to them how and why I arrived at the decision based off of the things that they hadn't pre-thought so we could get to an outcome. In my past life, I didn't have the patience to allow for input or to allow myself to get the feeling of having someone be seen and heard. And with that patience, I've learned that there's a reciprocal positive effect of having people feel seen and heard. And it actually helps to expedite those decisions that I make faster, in spite of my idea that if we don't have to talk about that, they happen faster.
Got it.
Yeah.
Lastly, and if you don't mind, there's about 10 different things I want to go in different rabbit holes with you. That'll be even that'll be a lot of fun in a subsequent sit down. But let's wrap this. If there was something you were someone scared, someone not taking a risk, someone who essentially knows something about themselves, but they're just like, they're looking to feel better. They're in that pain space, and they are unsure like how to take whatever the step is it's calling to them. What do you tell them so that they can unlock themselves and authorize themselves to move forward?
Whatever you want more of in your life, give more of it in your life. I believe that the first step is for people to understand that there is someone in the world that loves them. I truly believe that love is the answer to everything. And the next question somebody would say to me is, well, if that's true, how do I find the person that loves me? And I would say, I know this is counterintuitive at the moment, but give more love and watch how many people love you. If you walked up to a stranger, you were in the worst emotional place of your entire life, and you walked up to a stranger and said, can I give you a hug? I'm going to bet that significantly more than 50% of the time, that person's going to say yes, and you're going to get a hug back. So my answer would be give more of what it is that you're seeking in your life.
All right, this has been another episode of the Intentional Soul Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember to leave a 5-star review if you found this content of value. And as always, I'm your host, Tom Ross, master practitioner of the Advanced Rapid Enlightenment Process and Rapid Enlightenment Process developed by Matthew Ferry. You can reach me at tom@tomrosstalks.com, and the website to engage and be a part of any classes, trainings, or sessions I have going on is www.tomrosstalks.com. Until next time, peace.